Okay, so we're back again to finish sculpting the hand. We have polygrouped the fingers and went in and sculpted the basic proportions and gesture of a pretty relaxed male hand. We've established some of the planes that we're going to see on the hand and even place some of the bony landmarks like the knuckles. Okay, so I'm going to keep going with this and just kind of keep refining the forms. Maybe take away some of the harshly defined planes. One thing that strikes me is that I want this thumb to be a little bit more of an angle, so I'm going to mask that off and then rotate the thumb out just a little bit. Maybe I'll soften the mask. Let's see here. Using the transpose tool, you can click and drag along the topology. Oops. To mask based on your topology. It'll just kind of climb along the edge loops there. And I can rotate my thumb down just a little bit. And I like the way that that's feeling more. Maybe even something like that. Yeah, that's the ticket. We want the knuckles to be sitting back behind the webbing of the finger. So at this point I'm going to push the knuckles back a little bit and probably pull that webbing part forward a little as well. And one thing we want to think about in the structure of the fingers is the sort of ball and rod rhythm or form that exists, where the knuckles are the ball forms and the bones are the rod forms, and it creates sort of an expand and compress, and an expansion and a compression, so that it gets wider and then skinnier and wider and skinnier. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a taper there towards the end of the fingers and just kind of refining that shape a little bit. I'll take the Damien Standard brush and mark the creases on the undersides of the knuckles. It's important to note that these creases aren't necessarily going to sit right underneath the knuckle. So, for example, if the last knuckle of the pinky sits right here, then the crease for that knuckle is going to angle back a little bit, and even more so as it bends, the knuckle is going to become sit further out in front, and that crease is going to get kind of pushed back or compressed back towards the palm. Now you're really going to have to look at photo reference or realistic reference of hands, because everybody's hands are very different. The general proportions are going to be similar, but as far as the details and just some of the forms you see in hands vary significantly from person to person. So I generally use my own hands as reference, so that's what you're going to be seeing me sculpt here. I could go in and add more resolution by dividing my model one more time, but this is really all the resolution I'm going to want to work with at this stage, especially because we don't have final topology yet. So if any of this topology is going to change, I'd rather do all of the tertiary details on the final topology, just to make sure I don't have to do any crazy reprojections at the end or anything like that. Yeah, that thumb is feeling really thick there. I can probably afford to carve away quite a bit of volume. We don't want to feel like it's disconnected from this egg shape here. Which we run the risk at by creating this really harsh transition. I think one thing that might help that is by rotating, is to rotate this thumb out a little bit. Sometimes I like to do a little before and after, so I will sort of undo a whole bunch. See where we're at here. Hit Shift S to stamp a screen grab. Maybe turn it around to the other side as well. Oop. Shift S to take another one of the palm, and then take my undo history all the way back to its current state. Try to get these sizes back to where they were. And then just kind of compare and contrast and see where it was before, where it is now. So obviously not a lot has changed. Some, but not a ton. You see we changed the shape of this a little bit, took some volume out. Obviously changed the shape of the hand, or the thumb rather, which is I think feeling much nicer at this point. And we've done some refining on the pinky. So good. Control N for new document, and onward with our sculpting. Remember that we don't want to have a connection point that is just, oops, a V shape. Okay, just like that. We actually want a little bit of distance in here, in between the fingers. You'll notice that what I'm doing here is kind of starting to sculpt from the pad, pull that form kind of up and around the knuckle. So what you can kind of visualize this almost like some sort of weave pattern there, right? And that may not be something that's so explicit in real anatomy, but it is sort of a pleasing sort of gesture, and gets the forms to really tie together. I like to sometimes give the pinky a little bit of an up swoop like that. From this knuckle to the tip of the finger, rather than putting another harsh bend in the tip of the finger. I'll have it kind of continue out in a nice sort of swooping gesture. It creates a little bit of a different different rhythm here in the hand, which can be kind of nice. I like it anyways. Soften up that mask a little bit. I'm going to pull this finger down just a bit. Oop. Before I do that, I'm going to step down in subdivision levels so I don't get such a harsh reaction on the edge of that mask. Pull that down just a little bit. Step back up and see how that's working for us. What we want to see here, I'm going to take my clay brush, is this knuckle sort of overlapping the meaty pad of the thumb. Okay, so we're going to have this form going all the way back. We've got this nice little crease there. Which is going to sit just behind this knuckle. So I'll take my standard brush, pull out a little bit of volume here, maybe a little bit on the side. This is where the orientation of the camera gets a little wonky as well. And we're starting to see some weird sort of lumpy stuff here. So clay buildup brush really does a nice job at kind of evening all that stuff out. And I just kind of lightly rake over the forms. Again with a light touch, and usually you can kind of work all that stuff out. starting to look pretty good. So I've got two fingers that have yet to be refined, and a considerable amount of work to do on the underside of the hand. So for now, we'll save and pick up with that when we come back.